I'm here with Charlotte, and we are going to talk a little bit about what Charlotte's experience has been with EFT, having been through four of her own sessions in this process, with me guiding her along the way. So, Charlotte, how have you experienced EFT, and what have been some of your major takeaways from this experience?
Hi, April. Well, I've had, as April said, I've had four or five sessions one to one, and they've been really different. The journey of continuing to do these sessions together has been really, really kind of validating and life changing for me in terms of how I'm viewing things. So, as luck or not luck would have it, the first session that we started out on together 4 or 5 weeks ago happened to coincide with something that happened to me, and it felt like quite a crisis point. So I came into that session um, needing a bit of guidance and quite emotionally heightened. So my experience in that first session was profound and huge. And I think the way that April saw me, heard me, validated all the things I was feeling, and then turned that into a really, really bespoke tapping experience that really drew out of me like a huge amount of emotion and actually a lot of trauma that was not related to the thing that had just happened. It felt like the I've explained it to her actually before that we've talked about it before, I should say. We It felt like the cord was cut
Mm.
so that the trauma that it was pulling up each time, the traumatic experience that these smaller things would pull up on was after our session, it was not part of that experience anymore. I've talked about it as cord cutting or kind of snipping that narrative so that the kind of deep pain is separate. It doesn't keep being pulled up. And that's through April's really, really empathic and insightful um, insights into how what I've been talking about, how she's heard me and how she's turned those into really specific um, tapping sessions. So after that first session, a lot changed. It was very, very profound. So going from being a sort of 9 or 10 on the scale of some like negative feelings that I've been having, right through to them not being there anymore. And through that process of several rounds of tapping, I went through kind of despair, through through anger, which wasn't there at the beginning, which feels like a less intimate or vulnerable emotion to have. And then by the end of it, like a real, real calm. And 4 to 5 weeks later, that has stayed. And it's given me this kind of, I've described it to you as this kind of like wire wool of several things that were bound together in my head or my chest that are now separate. They've been separated. And in that separation, it's like, right, I can see really clearly now as I've been working through the following weeks with you about, whether we're separating out career or family life or, all the areas that I've been working with you on, purpose and love and, and family history. It's much easier for me to be able to deal with the thing because they're no longer linked in this kind of chain of trauma. And I know we've talked about the fact that, I've used different modalities, and a lot of people have been to therapy or are trying lots of various ways of self healing or guided healing. And this mode of guided healing is very, very effective in taking the emotional charge out so you can see the thing in front of you and make decisions without it pulling up a sort of deeply traumatic experience.
Yeah, that's amazing. And how have you found that first one where you came into it with quite a highly charged, situation that had just happened versus the last several weeks where we've been working together through more of like almost a transformational program type of experience where you have come in a much more calm state.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. So, as I say, that first time it just happened to coincide with something that had happened. But since then, as I've come in and sat down with April, and she said, "How's your week been?" Yeah, great. What, what do you want to work on this week? I'm not sure. I think if things feel cool, we're okay. And then as we start identifying areas and diving into them, it's actually giving me real clarity. And every week building on some kind of life purpose and work, which albeit is probably not as emotionally charged as other areas, but they pull in from everywhere. And as we start deep diving, there's something very important about the way, I just have to, I know I kind of said this, but I have to say it again, the way you hear me. And then when you say my words back to me, as I'm tapping on those key areas, it is absolutely somehow dispelling any myths around it. It is taking the emotional charge of unworthiness or lack of lovability or whatever the things are that we're working on out and giving me such a clear sense of perspective. I can't explain it. I can't explain it how quickly how quickly and effectively it's transforming my mindset from the beginning of the session to the end of the session or even throughout. It's been absolutely mind blowing. And as I say, even on the sessions where I come in and think, oh, I'd just like to think about this career thing, or maybe I could be more assertive in setting boundaries here, or how am I going to balance this with that? um we really find some deep dive places to go to. We're pulling things up that I didn't know were there, um in a not in an emotional way, just in a kind of, oh, okay, maybe I didn't realize that I was avoiding this because I didn't feel like I was good enough. But I
Right.
didn't know that until we've just gone down there. It's
Yeah.
just pulled it out and it's like, nope, don't think that anymore. Let's go. Let's do it.
And how do you feel like that is translating into your weeks then, as you sort of move throughout a normal day?
So week on week it's translating into action, and I feel really positive as well. Like there's been such a kind of positivity around it. It feels like these experiences that you might have had over the years, through family, through work, through experiences, through things that have happened. I can't explain it in a way that it feels like it's been severed, so it's not coming up every time. It's like, oh, that thing that happened 10 years ago, it's okay, and I've dealt with it and processed it in other ways as well, but it's severed it from being triggered each time a small thing happens. It's like a severing of the deeper emotion, and that's lovely. It's lovely to lay things to rest in a way, or for them not to kind of come out of nowhere. I mean, as I say, I'm someone who invests really heavily in psychological and spiritual well-being, and I've done a lot of work, and I don't have like a huge amount of you know ongoing issues. This is normal life stuff, and kind of not realizing that there was still some really deep-seated stuff that would come up and kind of trip me up, I guess, is the way, even if it manifested as a self-limiting belief in some way that was stopping me from taking a step over here, or making me feel really self-conscious to voice something, or feeling really personally hurt or attacked or rejected in ways when really that what the gravity of it what didn't match the response that I felt. It's really helped give perspective to that, and the way that you hear me and translate that um, into each round of tapping is extraordinary. It's like you've listened, heard my thoughts, turned them into like these nuggets of wisdom, and then I don't know, banished them in some kind of way. Yeah.
Amazing. And what would you say to somebody who is maybe looking into or exploring the possibility of trying EFT that hasn't tried it or had maybe tried it on YouTube before or something like that?
So the first thing I would say is this has genuinely been transformational for me. And I actually had tried tapping on YouTube, and I had tried it in a group session once as well. Neither of those were negative experiences. I just didn't get that much from it. It was like, yeah, I kind of feel kind of relaxed afterwards. I'm not quite sure. It's okay.
Hmm.
Working with April has been a session, it has been so transformative in terms of this emotional clarity, or as I say, removing the charge. It's the difference is the feelings that I feel, the words that I've used, the kind of deep seated stuff that I've said to you, that it might feel similar to a therapy session, it might not, I guess it depends what's happening, have been taken and really gently suggested back to me in such a loving way. And then tapping on each of the specific points releases something that is not generic. It's not a generic group session, and it's not a kind of vague YouTube session, if I'm being honest. It is exactly how I'm feeling in that moment about that specific thing. And it breaks the hold it has over you. It's like it goes right to the center of your nervous system response to a feeling or to a situation, and it just takes the charge out of it so you can think clearly about how to act. It's really been incredible.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing your experience.